Well, good morning. Good morning and welcome all to the Sunday morning service from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman and I will be serving as your worship associate for today. Today, we are so delighted to welcome the Reverend Dr. Tom Owen-Towle to UUFLB to our virtual pulpit as our guest minister. Reverend Tom Owen-Towle is a longtime friend of our congregation and has served Unitarian Universalist congregations for more than 50 years. We are so fortunate that he is joining us today. The title of the service today is The Better Angels of Our Nature. Using this phrase from President Abraham Lincoln, Reverend Tom will turn to our shared faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism, as a religion of ever-evolving love, for grounding and guidance that we need during this time of a raging pandemic and savage racism. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or gender, your economic or immigration status, the color of your skin, or whatever sincere questions you bring with you today, we welcome you. As Unitarian Universalists, we have 7 principles that guide us as we build religious community together. During these challenging times, and especially this week with the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I have been reflecting on our 2nd principle. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. As such, and in accordance with our principles, this congregation remembers and honors all of those who have fought and who are continuing to fight for justice, equity, and compassion, joining our voices and allowing ourselves, as Abraham Lincoln wrote in his first inaugural address, allowing ourselves to be touched by the better angels of our nature. Our fellowship is served by our minister, Reverend Marie Sanchez, who leads us in worship on one Sunday each month, and also joins us on other Sundays, and for many other events that occur each week, including our Friday Zoom at Noon discussion group and our recent social justice movie series. Reverend Marie is also, for me, an incredible inspiration in how she connects us with the wider UU community, including the current UU the Vote campaign, which is so important, and also helping to connect us with our local UU sister congregation. So I encourage you to look for Reverend Marie's email messages, alerting us to opportunities to join together with Tapestry in collecting donations of clothing and other needed items for Project Room Key residents. And these are our neighbors who are currently without homes and are at risk for COVID-19. So on that project, I also want to give a very special thanks this morning to Paul Bogdan and to Rachel and Brian Daniels, who have offered to help us by collecting and delivering donations. Generosity and action are the keys by which we can make a difference in the world. So thank you to all. Reverend Marie has also asked me to make a special announcement. On Sunday afternoon, October 4th at 2 p.m., the fellowship will be holding a celebration of life for Reva Morton Diamond. Again, that's 2 Sundays from now, Sunday, October 4th at 2 p.m. And you will be receiving information about the Zoom connections to be able to join that celebration of life. So important to celebrate the amazing life of Reva Morton Diamond. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. Today, Reverend Marie will be lighting our chalice from her home. Reverend Marie, you are muted.
There we go. It's my honor today to be able to light our chalice when the Reverend Dr. Tom Owen-Towle will be speaking for us, because Tom has been my mentor and my friend and my colleague now for decades. I'd like to dedicate the flame to the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice. May her memory be a blessing. May her memory be a revolution. May we be a credit to her memory. Amen. Thank you.
Our chalice lighting words this morning were written by Melanie J. Davis. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. To start our exploration this morning, please join in reading together our centering thought. Prophetic words spoken by Frederick Douglass in 1857. These words were part of a speech commemorating the emancipation of West Indian slaves and the crucial role that these slaves took in their own emancipation. Reverend Tom and I will be reading these words as a responsive reading. While you will be muted from home, I invite you to join us in reading the words and to listen to them with your heart. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground.
They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters.
This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will.
Find out what people will submit to, and you have found the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them.
The limit of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress.
Words from Frederick Douglass. I invite you now to enjoy our opening hymn with music provided by our talented music director, Carole. This is number 155 in our gray hymnal, Circle Round for Freedom.
Good morning. Circle round, circle round for two. For all of us, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
As we gather today from our homes for worship, let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we choose to come together as a community. I invite you to read the words of our unison affirmation together when and if it feels right for you. If you wish, please unmute your microphone. Joining our voices together this morning will allow us to voice our commitment as a community, even though we will not be coordinated as we usually are when we're together at UUFLB. So please join me in reading. May we
Be reminded here
of our highest aspirations and inspired by our gifts of service and the altar of humanity. May
we know
we are not isolated, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And we will now have opening words from our guest minister.
I have chosen words from Adrienne Rich, the feminist poet. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world.
We have come now to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. We do this every week as a way to value our fellowship, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows can be lessened. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we have paused the recording of the service. Well, thank you all for sharing the sorrows, the great sorrow of the camp, which I've only been attending for 10 years, but feel a deep connection to. And I think we all share the worry and the concern and the sorrow for what can be lost. And also the joys of family members who have found employment and the joys of being able to take a class to both broaden, I think, our minds and experience, but have a chance to share that with others. So thank you all for sharing these joys and concerns, which we will hold, as well as those that are unspoken. We'll hold in our hearts and minds in the coming week as we draw on the strength that we truly can give to one another as we share our joys and as we lighten each other's burdens. It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing, self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is our responsibility to do both and to do both well. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contributions from all of you, and we are empowered by the innumerable gifts of those who join in covenants with us: service and trust, collaboration, patience, humor, and compassion, curiosity and time, and also the gift of financial contribution, which allows the fellowship to meet its financial commitments. All of these gifts, generously given, are needed for the fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. The information on your screen here provides 2 ways in which you can give, either electronically or by sending a check to the fellowship. And this information and the links to give electronically, as well as the address, this information is also available in the email message which you received with the link to join the service this morning. So thank you to all for all of the contributions that you make to UUFLB. Now we will come to a time of meditation.
Please join me in some moments of silent communion and prayer. O eternal Spirit of life, of love, and of liberation, our prayer is simple. Be our companion as we struggle to create a more hopeful and just and joyous world. Companion especially those individuals and families suffering from the pandemic, economic inequities, racial violence, the fires, the hurricanes, the deaths of civil rights activists. May there be peace and unrest in our lives, enough peace to bring us serenity and calm, but enough unrest to keep us morally awake and spiritually on our toes. Amen, salam, and shalom. My dear Laguna Beach Unitarian Universalists, it's good to be back among you, even if it is via Zoom. I especially want to thank my dear colleague, Reverend Lee Marie, for inviting me. To Pam Flodman for her warm and detailed collaboration as worship associate. Don West, your Zoom master, and Carole, your superior music director, from whom I take away songs for my own singing most every time I'm with you. This year, we've already lost, among many others, C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, civil rights icons. And on this past Friday, Rosh Hashanah, we lost a brilliant, relentless, ever gracious rights icon, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we are filled with sadness and appreciation and resolve. We will keep on both mourning and marching for greater equity and compassion in our land because of the witness of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Jewish New Year marks a critical time to ponder why we're here on earth. Look again at who we really are and what we deeply cherish, and vow to bring our identity and bring our vision into closer alignment. This season is our chance for soul searching without breast beating. Our shortcomings and sins may taint us, but they cannot define us. We are always more than our wrongs, and we will start proving that tomorrow morning. I start with uplifting words from President Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural address in 1861. Words delivered on the eve of the Civil War, and words focused on saving the Union. Words which speak volumes to our present day America. He said, "We are not enemies, but friends. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will swell when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature. So no matter how divided and demoralized our country is during this season of a ravaging pandemic compounded by savage racial oppression and economic inequities, hurricanes in the South, fires in California, threatening our very own De Benneville Pines campsite. Despite all of that, if we're ever going to move toward forming a more perfect union, then we Americans must appeal to the better angels of our nature. As Sikh author, filmmaker, and civil rights activist Valerie Kaur, K-A-U-R, puts it in her brand new superlative book, See No Stranger, a memoir of manifesto of revolutionary love. She writes, we must choose to enter into wonder and grieving and labor for others, for our opponents. She intentionally uses the term opponent rather than enemy. And for ourselves, for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to transform the world around us. We need to see more and more kinds of people as part of us, or parts of us we do not yet know. They are our siblings. Each of us, my friends, is but a partial shareholder for a short time on a tiny corner of the planet. And our primary mission is to become responsible and caring stewards from birth until death. That's all we have to be and do. Become responsible and caring stewards of the earth during our lifetimes. That's our job description. And all of our names are on it. And when we fall backwards or slump sideways, we can always return to the guidance and grounding of our Unitarian Universalism. For me, there are 4 words that capture the core of our progressive faith: an ever-evolving love. And I believe that this phrase will enable us to embody the better angels of our nature as we struggle to reshape the soul of America, an ever-evolving love. Now's the time to go to our chosen faith for help. Understandably, we often turn to science, politics, sociology, and the wisdom of world religions. But we sometimes forget to turn to our own faith for strength and direction. So I'm going to preach our Unitarian Universalist brand of theology today, because I want us to remember who we truly are and where we've come from, historically and spiritually. Our Unitarian emphasis is the rallying cry of the 16th century Transylvanian pioneer Francis David, Semper Reformanda, or always reforming. And remember, this dictate charges us to both change external reality and be changed internally, reforming and being reformed, all the way home, ever evolving creations. In the 16th century, religion was a matter of life and death, with formal public debates being held regularly, and in this specific case, between the defender of the Trinity, Peter Mellius, and the advocate of the unity of God, Francis David. And their fierce dispute ran for 10 days, starting at 5 a.m. each morning. Now, placed in perspective, on good days, pre-pandemic, 5 a.m. might be the time I arise to go to my gym for a workout, but hardly bounding up to engage in weighty theological discourse. And it took 2 days merely to establish the ground rules for the Melius-David confrontation. And in fact, before the contest, Melius turned to David and he said, if I win this debate, you will be executed. And David calmly retorted, and if I win this debate, you and everyone else in this land will be given the religious freedom and tolerance due every human being. What an earth-shaking difference in theology. One desperately needed today, where dogmatism, lies, bigotry, and violence are creating an uncivil war in our own homeland. Fortunately, David won, and many were converted to Unitarianism, including John Sigismund the King, who immediately issued the Western world's first edict of religious toleration in 1568. Imagine that. Sadly, the period of religious openness was short-lived. For Sigismund, a frail but noble monarch, died 3 years later in 1571, and a repressive emperor followed and summarily dismissed David as the court preacher and imposed censorship against any form of religious free thought. And since David was considered an unrepentant innovator, he was banished to the dungeon, where he died in 1579 and was buried in an unmarked grave. So, my siblings, the core doctrine of our Unitarian side is semper reformanda, always reforming and being reformed. It means that you and I can grow, evolve, and change spiritually all our days and nights on earth. That's good news indeed. Here's a personal example. In my men's soulful and prophetic work since 1973, I've invariably employed as shorthand the self-identification of WHAM, W-H-A-A-M-M. That is white, heterosexual, Anglo-Saxon, able-bodied, middle-class male. And as a member of WHAM, I've been a lifelong carrier of unearned privilege and power, and must daily labor to dismantle my very own condition. And so I've added ER, or ever reforming, to become a whammer, trying to bring my practices and my preachments into healthier moral alignment. I'm pledging, as are other self-identified males, to practice the messy, endless labor of dismantling all injustices that keep us on top and whamming away. As a card-carrying Unitarian Universalist, I'm pledging to become a whammer all the way to my grave. Semper reformanda. And our Universalist core comes from Reverend John Murray's first sermon on American soil in 1770, September 30th, 1770, 250 years ago. Give them not hell, but hope and courage, and preach the kindness and everlasting love of God. As a Universalist, I believe every living being is welcomed into existence via everlasting love and returns upon death to the embrace of that same reality. So during our lifetimes, we're impelled to become hopeful and courageous practitioners of love. Loved, we love in return. and ever-evolving love. That's our Unitarian Universalist gospel. And our mission is to live by, to live through, and to live inside it. Now remember, an ever-evolving love will only emerge gradually and often with real difficulty, and most of us in the room here today won't be around to see it realized. As colleague Alma Crawford astutely remarks, in our tradition, discomfort, like prayer and fasting and yoga, discomfort is a spiritual discipline. So I don't want to fool anybody this morning. You and I have chosen a faith of immense difficulty and discomfort. We're called to do hard. Remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s classic statement from the Birmingham jail in 1963. If you haven't read it, track it down. Only several pages long. It was composed during his 11-day lockup in a jail cell with no speechwriter by his side. And here's but a patch. There's a strangely irrational notion in our land that there's something in the very flow of time that will inevitably cure all ills. Actually, time can be used either destructively or constructively. Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and persistent work of people willing to be co-workers with the creation. King's words are not only relevant for our ever-evolving anti-racism work as Unitarian Universalists, which we've aptly called Journey Toward Wholeness, but also prove useful for every personal, every social, every spiritual struggle in which we humans are embroiled. Time is neutral. It's what we do with our time that matters. Semper reformanda means keeping on, keeping on, keeping on, growing and reforming both self and society until when we die, incomplete and unfinished practitioners of an ever-evolving love. To be sure, as a homestretch elder, as a whammer, my seasons are numbered. Yet they're currently filled with growing faith and hope and love. Despite our 400 plus years of virulent, intractable racism, I perceive shining sparks of promise. The protests throughout America and abroad in response to the murder of African Americans at the hands of police officers have been essentially peaceful and purposeful. They're not only transpiring in cities, but in rural communities as well. And these rallies and marches are bursting with greater numbers of whites and younger folks than ever before. In laid back San Diego, you've got surfers and med students and skateboarders and corporate lawyers joining hands for greater police reform. You see, this new activist generation, they're signing on as lifers. It's not a task force. It's not 3 months and out. They're lifers in hot and deep pursuit of forging once and for all a multiracial democracy. In the soul of this grizzled civil rights veteran whose life was changed when marching in Selma back in 1965 is surging with positivity. And these fresh moral troops of lieutenants are fighting anti-blackness with righteous rage. When Carolyn and I returned to Selma for the 50th anniversary, we were blessed to hear Opal Tometi, one of the young adult founders of Black Lives Matter, And after Opal spoke, I turned to Carolyn and tearfully said, okay, the cause is in good hands with the Opal Tomettis of the world. When it's our time to go, we can leave with renewed hope and peace. And recently, within the span of 1 week, there was a hopeful news of the first in a series of lawsuits citing the Standing Rock tribal sovereignty in opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline, and surprising Supreme Court support of the rights of dreamers and LGBTQIA+ folks. Now, these are tiny and awkward steps, to be sure, but these are steps forward toward greater justice and joy. Semper reformanda. More good news to report. Our granddaughter, Corinne, currently teaching ESL in South Korea, is waking up as well. Here's but a portion of the passionate letter she penned after the most recent murders of Black Americans. Hey, Graham and Graham, why haven't I been outraged my entire life? It's taken me 22 years to discover the verb in activism. It's a word that requires action. It's taken me this long to find that being an ally isn't synonymous with being not racist. And all I really can say is thank goodness it didn't take me a moment longer. 2020 will be the year that we woke up. Love, Corinne. Oh, dear granddaughter, your fearlessness is palpable. We can feel your energy toward restructuring the soul of your native soil. And Corinne, there's no need to apologize that you're getting truth at the age of 22. John Lewis at the age of 21 signed on as one of the original freedom riders, spent 34 years as the conscience of Congress, and was writing legislation to secure voters' rights the week before he died at the age of 80. Corinne, you are choosing, starting right now like Brother John, to get into good, necessary trouble and to become a lifer for greater freedom and justice for all. Ever onward, Corinne. Semper reformanda, in the name of love, simply stay woke. Okay. We've got hordes of new, fiery, yet grounded activists, but the question persists. How can a white male geezer contribute? Well, for starters, I can listen empathetically to BIPOC siblings, Black, Indigenous, people of color siblings, heeding what they specifically want and need from me. I can also participate in our UUA-sponsored Beloved Conversation series, which occasions painful yet substantive discussions about race. And when the right moment calls, I can answer by being a bold and brave white anti-racist ally, accomplice, and advocate, rather than being another guy simply laden with guilt and fragility. That's why Carolyn and I are moving towards upwards of 500 cards and letters for encouraging the complacent voters and those who are being suppressed and those who have not voted before, to encourage them to become involved in good and necessary trouble like Brother John Lewis. It's unlikely that we will return to physical and economic and environmental or medical normalcy soon, or maybe ever. But might this just be the golden opportunity for us to create a new moral order, a new moral state of increasing mercy, and justice for all. Might this just be the season when we finally address climate change and global warming? Might this apocalyptic time motivate us to save ourselves from ourselves? Or will we carelessly succumb to oppression of the least and the lost and the last among us? And so I keep returning to our four words and ever-evolving love. The core of our Unitarian Universalist gospel, and despite our imperfections, we can keep on ever loving all our days and nights on earth. As Unitarian Universalists, we proclaim an unwavering belief in the unity of reality and the conviction that love is the undeniable character of that reality. And most notably, that we as distinct human beings are animated during our earthly stay to treat the universe as unified and to add our own ounces of love, to the mix. As our colleague, the Reverend Mary Harrington, as she was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, so poignantly put it, what's the most loving thing I can do right now? What's the most loving thing I can do this afternoon? Love begets love. Loved, we love in return. Plain and simple, dear ones. That's why we're here on earth. As Unitarian Universalists, we work as well as play ceaselessly to make our world more beautiful and joyful and just. We write, we protest, we vote, we create, we sing, and we serve, and then we relinquish the final results. Because along with our founder, John Murray, we believe that all of us are held in the arms of eternal love, no matter what we've ultimately done or not done. This day, one's entire life, and the full-blown universe rest in the grasp of an infinitely loving power. Rest assured, as our Universalist ancestors put it. Work your tail off, and then rest assured. Work your tail off, and then rest assured. That's our gospel. And in closing, I want to sing one of our signature chants composed by Rebecca Parker, the words, and Beth Norton, the music, a simple song which captures the soul of our gospel. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
Oh, thank you so much, Reverend Tom, for being with us today, for challenging us with your spirit, with your words, with the words of your granddaughter. And now, as we come towards the close of our service, I invite all to enjoy our closing hymn this morning, which will be number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace guide us, hope inside us. sing like angels. If you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world if you love. Love will guide us, peace will shine us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from free to living. Love will guide us through the hard night.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the worth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And the words from Reverend John Murray, September 30th, 1770. Go out into the highways and byways. Give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of men and women. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach the kindness and everlasting love of God.
Now please enjoy our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my song and vow. Take each moment, live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Have a wonderful day.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is saying that white Americans to put your body on the line to support the cause, to join us if you choose. for the march from Selma to Montgomery. And so there were 40 plus of us that joined, got on a bus. I had never been to the South before. I'm a West Coaster, and went there. And our job, I'll never forget, James Bevel and John Lewis and the others said, okay, a couple guidelines. You need to be willing to do whatever we ask you to do. And in our case, that was clean off the fields of cow dung and set up tents for the marchers. We weren't a part of the premier marchers until the last day going into Montgomery. He said, if you're not willing to do that, I invite you to get back on the bus and go home. And secondly, we invite you to do this passionately yet non-violently. All that you do. And thirdly, this is good, necessary trouble. And I don't only want you to get into it this week. I want you to take the lessons home and try to live them out the rest of your days.